All right, here
Hello.
we go. Hello once again.
Hello, my name's Jay.
My name is Lottie. And
today we're going to have an interview with Lottie. And we'll be discussing grammar and vocabulary.
Yeah, to sum up, what have we discussed so far? So we've done just the audio portion of, our work today.
Yeah, we
what
tried
did we cover?
to distinguish between grammar and vocabulary.
Yeah, which was hard for me.
And we spent most of the time discussing vocabulary. So, let's discuss maybe some problems English learners face while studying vocabulary.
Yeah.
And then grammar.
First of all, I just wanted to, because I gave a terrible answer for the question about difference between vocabulary and grammar. I did cheat and use Google just now. So I'll start with that. Sorry, like a correction, as it says here, and not my answer. Oh, it's AI, I'm sorry. Grammar is the set of rules for how words are combined to form sentences. While vocabulary is the collection of words and their meanings. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with my definition of vocabulary as words.
So what do you think about this definition? Is it about prescriptive grammar or descriptive grammar? If it's a set of rules. It looks like prescriptive grammar, innit?
Yeah, I guess by definition it would be, but even like if any sentence needs to have some kind of grammar in it. So even if you don't abide by all of the rules, like, we can't just be saying, what was the sentence I said earlier? It's kind of like you hear this often with like Chinese students.
What, your dad?
What your dad name?
Oh,
okay, that's okay, right? Because that's a very simple sentence. But I don't know, anything a bit more complex than that you definitely need to use some grammar words just for the purpose of understanding, right? Because otherwise you're very limited to things like I go school tomorrow, things like that. So we do need to have a little bit of rules, actually. Yeah.
Going back to lexical devices and vocabulary in general, why do you think many natives do not use many fancy words, many long words, many C2 words, etc.? If we listen to their conversations, natural conversations, they use them only once in a while.
How do we know they don't?
We can watch interviews with natives, and we can see that if we read their transcripts, for example, like some interviews, transcripts, we'll see that they use fancy words like long words very seldom.
I actually don't think that's actually possible to estimate that well if you don't live in a country. Like an interview is like how long, like 10 minutes out of someone's day.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. I don't really think we can actually estimate that accurately without like being in England or America.
But even subjectively, being native speakers in our languages, we realize that other native speakers do not, except for maybe some professors, do not normally use many long and impressive words. It's
hard to say because in England I'm not thinking about what a C2 word is, for example. So it's hard to judge. Here, I can tell you why here, because I'm speaking to a lot of non-native speakers and my job is to teach English. So, but I think with my, my friends, people in my personal life, maybe, yeah, sure, why not? But it's definitely not something you actively think about. I mean, of course, context matters. If I'm at work, of course, me personally, I'm not going to be doing that. And obviously, you're not either, just by virtue of our job.
I'm not a stranger to the topic.
To what topic?
To the topic of vocabulary and grammar in English, etc.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just you're not going to be using C2 words if you're teaching.
I'm not going to, except for maybe some examples.
Right, unless you're specifically teaching it, so context doesn't allow for that. Again, in interviews, it depends on what it's about, of course, as well. Discussions, you might be a lot more likely to hear more C2 words because let's say in a debate, it actually requires like a level of precision that can only be given by C2 words, if that makes sense. But in general conversation, like the kind of conversations I'm having every day, like at the shop, at work, for the sake of being understood, because I'm speaking English in a non-native English-speaking country.
And even in an English-speaking world, I remember, I'm sorry for interjecting,
That's all right.
In England, I remember talking to a shop assistant in England, and their English was terrible. Of course, it's just one example, but I should say that not all people living in the country speak the language.
But what was terrible about their English?
Not just the accent, but I mean the level of English was.
But like how?
They would make many mistakes. Their accent was awful.
But what do you mean? Were they a native speaker?
No, they were not native speakers, but
right.
they lived in the country.
No, that's why. That's why I was confused. I thought you were talking
No.
about native.
Of course, no.
Speaker.
All natives will pass for a native speaker.
Yeah, they will. Even if I was going to say, even native speakers can have.
If they're drunk or intoxicated.
Right. Yeah. No, that's why I was confused. I was thinking, how like
non-natives. There are many non-natives. There were many non-natives back then, because it was before Brexit, when I was in England. Yeah.
I mean, like there still are. Like a lot of the immigrants aren't from the EU, actually. So. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I thought you meant that a native speaker had a horrible accent or horrible English, but I think maybe it's possible in England.
I like different accents, even if they're like Brummies or whatever. Even if they sound different. So, going back to grammar, what is the most difficult thing in English grammar, in your opinion?
I don't think you've ever actually asked me that before, and that's a very good question. The most difficult thing. Lots of ways to think about this. There are lots of things I hear mistakes with, and of course it's in tenses, but I don't think tenses are the most difficult thing. Or something I think that is more difficult that I hear mistakes with, and we were kind of chatting about it just after we finished the audio recording. It's modal verbs. Of course, in Russian, of course, like the word должен can be have to, should, or maybe even must, right? But these are completely different in English. And like...
and sometimes you render the meaning lexically, not just grammatically, but you can choose a different construction and express the same thing.
Right, like because overlapping meanings.
People are looking for a modal verb to translate some Russian phrase.
Right.
But what they need to do, they need to know what they want to say, and they need to know the correspondence because in English. Because sometimes we can do without modal verbs by simply using other lexical means.
Well, okay, basically, yeah, things can be reworded, right?
Yeah.
I'm just having a look at this. I've got up on my screen. This is actually like something from Advanced Plus. With my proficiency group, we were doing clauses. I wouldn't necessarily say they're the most difficult. Maybe conditionals, at least for Russians. In a lot of Latin languages, they do tend to correspond. Something I found really difficult when learning Spanish was the subjunctive mood, which in English corresponds to phrases like, if I were, instead of if I was, whatever. These kind of special phrases, special uses of tenses. I'd probably go then, just looking at this list of like what this Advanced Plus book contains, I'd probably go for modal verbs or what did we literally just have? Or different uses of tenses, because part of that is kind of undoing what you've already learned, right? So for example, I guess part of this ties into like will having two different meanings, like agreeing to do something or just saying that something will happen.
Or even a habitual action.
Yeah, well, yeah, because would is actually past tense of will, technically, which is a very strange one.
And what do you think about articles? So natives do not have any problems with articles, while non-natives make many mistakes or misusing articles?
If their native language doesn't contain articles, then yes, but you won't really hear. There are maybe slight differences in English compared to like French and Spanish, for example. I think for them it's actually easier because we don't have gendered articles and they do. This is probably one case where the lexical approach works quite well with articles. Like you can't just go in.
Yeah, you should memorize the phrase with articles.
Yeah, and then try to work back and understand why it is that way. Which I think generally is what happens. Like you can't teach like an elementary level student about articles without like having them never having seen it first. I wouldn't say the articles are actually different though. Of course, if it's completely new as a concept, then yeah, understandably it takes time, but I don't think it actually is necessarily the most difficult part of English. I would say, yeah, it's special uses of tenses and modal verbs. Modal verbs particularly for non-native speakers because we have so many of them, and as you pointed out, they're also would, it's actually also a narrative tense that corresponds to used to.
I've got one more short but very important question. So how fast does the language change and grammar and vocabulary, and what can we do about it?
I don't think I've ever noticed grammar changing, but vocabulary can do.
Should we trust our textbooks? Should we trust online dictionaries? Or what should we do?
Grammar textbooks, absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. And grammar does not change that much. I cannot think of a single example in my lifetime of grammar changing. Dictionaries, gosh, this is a whole other thing. Depends on the dictionary. Words have multiple definitions. I like Wiktionary. I find that pretty reliable.
Okay. Also, free collocation dictionary. And
Yeah. I mean, even Urban Dictionary.
Yeah, Urban Dictionary contains a lot of slang, American slang. Can you think of any British equivalent of the Urban Dictionary?
There's loads of British slang on there.
Yeah, but...
we don't have like a different site or anything. Like if you type in chav, that's on there.
Alright.
Yeah, no, it's any slang basically.
Okay, I think we have discovered the most of it. Thank you very much for your answers. And
thank you for asking.
have a good one.
Yeah,
Cheers.
have a good one. Cheers.
Bye.